I guess this is what you've been waiting for, huh? Hi, good luck. You're going to need it. You're going to need it. Anyway, it's nice to be here. Thank you for coming. I had a couple of thoughts, and I thought I might share them with you. One is, or was, about being a student. That's a young student. Okay, so about being a student, I wrote a book in 1987 as if I had a diary, which I didn't have. But I made believe I had a diary. But anyway, I wrote this about being a student. Gary and David make me take out the nurse's hat or listen to everybody and then don't take their advice. I made a painting called Red Cross Painting for Norman Fisher that had on it a nurse's hat made of plaster. David Dio and another painter, Gary Steffen, came over to my studio and looked at it. Because it seemed extra to them, they both thought I should cut out the nurse's hat. I took their advice and ruined the painting. Thinking about the nurse's hat now, I realize what I learned. Never listen to anybody when it comes to being responsible for your own paintings. It's a mistake for young artists to want to please older ones. They're going to make you take out of your paintings the very things that most characterize them as yours. You might think that someone is really smarter than you are, or wiser, or more experienced, and they may be. But you can't listen to them because nobody knows better than you what you need to do. Most older artists are going to try to get you to conform to the standards that you're out to destroy anyway. So, you got to do it your way. And so when you're painting and you're working by yourself and you don't need to be financed by anyone else, people that might have money that might want to invest in your film because they might see it as commerce. There's a difference between art and commerce. And you have to make a decision on what you want to do. When I made the first plate painting called The Patients and the Doctors, it had broken dishes on it. It was in 1978. Nobody asked me to do it, and I didn't know how much drawing was supposed to be on it. I didn't even know what it was supposed to look like. I just thought maybe if I was in Barcelona at the Park Güell, and I saw these benches that Gaudí had made where he had embedded ceramics into the benches, and they were in this playground, dirt playground. And after I went to this mediocre restaurant that had white tiled mosaic on the wall that was pretty terrible. And I was living in a room that cost $2.50 in Barcelona. And so I measured the armoire with my arms, and I thought about how it went back into the wall. So I thought, okay, that's a good size. That's an anthropomorphic size. That's a good size for a painting. Looked like furniture. Anyway, I went home, built this box with these panels that went up. It covered it with dishes that I bought at the Salvation Army. I mean, there was a challenged guy there who couldn't fit the plates into the box. I said, it doesn't matter, I'm going to break them anyway, just drop them. So I broke the dishes and I glued them onto this panel, and I made the first plate painting. I didn't know how much drawing was supposed to be inside of it or what image was supposed to be there. But the thing about painting is you don't have to know what you're doing. And if anybody tells you that they know what they're doing, they're lying to you. So when somebody says, what are you doing? And you say, I don't know, that's a good answer. You'll know when you arrive at that point and you make that thing. Whether you're making music, whether you're making a painting, or whether you're making a film. Now, nobody asked me to make any paintings, and nobody wanted to buy any of my paintings, but I felt like making them just because I wanted to do it. If by chance, after that happens, and somebody wants to buy the work that you made, that's a whole other thing. And if people buy the work and you see that there's some kind of enthusiasm about what you did, if you start to copy yourself, it's the worst possible thing you could do. So there might be a trajectory where you make things that have a similarity of appearance, but at another moment, if you don't feel like doing it anymore, don't do it. And make something that you didn't do yet. Now, if somebody's acting, anybody knows who Benicio del Toro is, who's a great actor. I made a film called Basquiat. He's in the film. I made a few movies. But I made a movie about, but you never know what he's going to do. You never know what's going to come out of his mouth. You can give him the lines, but he's going to take it and make it his own. And there was an actor named Niels Arastrup, who I made a film called At Eternity's Gate about Vincent van Gogh, with Willem Dafoe playing Vincent van Gogh. I actually made the movie with my wife, Louise Kugelberg, who's sitting over there in the dark. And she wrote and edited the film. And we worked with a man called Jean-Claude Carrier, who worked with Louis Buñuel, who wrote Belle de Jour. He wrote The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. Anyway, he was 90 when he died, but we had the privilege of living with him and working with him. And I wanted to read something because I do have two practices. One is that of painting, and then one is that of making films. And I don't know, I think some people in this room probably know who Michelangelo Antonioni was. And he wrote this book called That Bowling Alley on the Tiber. And in the introduction, if I can find it, okay. You ready? Okay. Antonioni, I believe I've managed to strip myself bare, to liberate myself from the many unnecessary formal techniques that were so common at the time. So I've rid myself of much useless technical baggage, eliminating all the logical transitions, all those connective links between sequences where one sequence served as a springboard for the one that followed. The reason I did this was that I believe that cinema today should be tied to the truth rather than to logic. And the truth of our daily lives is neither mechanical, conventional, nor artificial, as stories generally are, and if films are made that way, they'll show it. So I think it's important for cinema to turn toward ways of expression that are absolutely free as painting, which has reached abstraction. Perhaps cinema will even construct poetry, a cinematic poem in rhyme. By stripping himself in this way to achieve a poetic rather than merely conventional truth, the director tends to disappear into his own work. His cinematic poetry is the inevitable consequence. So here's a guy trying to do something his way without any compromise. And he had an idea that he wanted, or a feeling, he wanted to make a movie with a script called Technically Sweet, or Tecnicamente Dolce. Anyway, the script was drafted in 1966. But the battle between film and myself, I always regarded myself as the winner. But I had failed to take account that implacable, pitiless, and cynical arbiter who holds in his hands the thread of every cinematic enterprise, the producer. When Carlo Ponti told me unexpectedly and inexplicably that he had no longer intended to produce the film, that he had changed his mind, the world that I had so laboriously constructed in my mind, fantastic and true, so beautiful and mysterious, suddenly crumbled. The ruins are still here, somewhere inside of me. So I would say, watch out. Follow your heart. Understand that the reasons that you do something are not necessarily the reasons why other people get involved with you. And in my experience, I've had the privilege of making films that have not been compromised. In fact, I never made a compromise in my life. I don't know a lot of people in this room that could say that until this year. When I made a movie that was my version of what a Caravaggio painting could be, and the investors wanted to turn it, they wanted to put it in a Vegematic and turn it into green juice. So I've had to deal with that, and the reason why I wanted to say that is because you have to really think about who you get involved with, because you're all getting ready to get involved with somebody or do something soon. So think about that, and don't ever say yes the first time you're flattered by somebody's enthusiasm. Take a day to think it over. Anyway, this guy was a great director, and he made some great films. La Ventura, La Notte. You can look him up or Google him. Anyway, he's dead now. But his art is alive, and the art that you make is the thing that lasts. Everything that's not in one of my paintings doesn't exist. I don't exist. I'm here with you right now, talking to you, but in a little while I won't be here. But whatever's in my paintings is what I have to say. Whatever's in my films is what I have to say. Whatever is in Miles Davis's music is what he had to say, or Thelonious Monk, or Nina Simone, or Bach. So what is it, making art? What is that whole thing about? It's about positing whatever humanity you have inside of you and putting it there, and that's what you are. And there's a line in this last film that we made, Louise and I, where Marty Scorsese is playing an old Kabbalistic Jew who's talking to Dante Alighieri, who's played by Oscar Isaac, who just reads to him the last line of Paradiso. And Marty says, or actually the man with no name called Isaiah says, "You have become the sigh. You have lifted the veil on the inexpressible. You have become the poem." And that is the best thing that you could be. So in your work, whatever you do, whether you dance, whether you paint, whether you make music, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a dentist, whether you're an gastrologist, whatever the hell you're going to do. Like Martin Luther King said, if you can't be a tree, be a bush, but be the best little bush on the side of the road. Anyway, he said one other thing. He said that you can build your house in the forest, but the world will find its path to your door. So watch out. That's it.
Dr. Schnabel. I thank you, the McGovern College thanks you, the University of Houston thanks you for your support and for your honoring us with your presence. You may say one more thing.
I was once asked to do this before at the Corcoran School of Art. My father was alive at the time. He died when he was 92. So they gave me some robes, and I said, would you give my dad some robes also? And so when they wanted to give me this honorary degree, I said, I can't accept it. I want to give it to my father. So my father came up. He had a third-grade education. He came from Czechoslovakia. My father came up, and he had the robes on, and he said, I can't accept this because I want to give this to my wife. Well, my mother was dead at the time. She died when she was 89. I said, Dad, we can't keep giving this away. I gave it to you. You can't give it to Mom. You have to accept this. So anyway, when my father died, he had a PhD, and he did accept it. But I thought it was a good story.
It's great.